Hello, my name is John. Today I need to vent and tell my story. Years ago, I met Anna. We were two young people who seemed destined to be together. We spent hours talking about our dreams, sharing laughter, and exploring a world full of possibilities. The spark between us was undeniable, and the attraction and passion grew more every day. We ended up together and got married. The wedding was an unforgettable day for both of us. I can't describe what I felt when I realized that we would be together forever. I would be her partner and she would be mine until the end of our days. However, as it happens in many relationships, over time cracks began to appear. At first, these were small discrepancies in our opinions and tastes. But soon I noticed that Anna was beginning to distance herself. Deep, passionate conversations became rarer, replaced by awkward silences and monosyllabic responses. She seemed lost in thought, and although my intuition told me something was wrong, I held on to the belief that our relationship could overcome any obstacle. One of the first warning signs was his sudden interest in spending more time away from home. Her work meetings became more and more frequent, and the hours she spent away extended into the night. And no, don't call me sexist or old or tell me that I didn't trust my wife, because I know you're thinking that. I tried to stay calm, trusting that she had reasons for being gone for so long. But the shadow of doubt was already hanging over our relationship. One night, when Anna returned home after one of her supposed meetings, I noticed her averted gaze and trembling hands. I asked her about her day, and she was evasive. My suspicions grew, but I didn't want to think about the possibility that she was being unfaithful to me. The evidence of her deception slowly began to accumulate. I discovered a perfume on her clothes that I didn't recognize, and on one occasion, I found a small hoop earring in the back seat of her car. I knew it wasn't hers. I'm very observant, and she always wore big, colorful earrings. When I presented this evidence to her, Anna always had an excuse ready. The perfume was a gift from a friend, and the earring must have fallen from a coworker. Despite these signs, my love for my wife was so deep that I refused to accept the reality before my eyes. I believed in the sincerity of her words, but I didn't ignore the mysterious calls she received late at night. That her phone was always on silent, or that when she had it in her hands, she would walk away from me as if she were hiding something. Every message or call increased my worry. Confirmation of her infidelity came when one day, while she was showering, I went to her laptop to look for a bill that had arrived in her email. Searching for the document I needed, I found a message that took my breath away. It was a compromising email from an unnamed sender. The content detailed secret encounters and passionate adventures. My hands shook as I read each word, and the pain I felt was unbearable. I felt guilty for invading her privacy, but my need for answers was overwhelming. I couldn't resist the temptation and sent a message, pretending to be her. What I received in return was a curt response. I got the impression that that person knew Anna very well. I knew it wasn't her, perhaps because of my way of writing. I couldn't contain myself, and I told my wife. And once again, Anna managed to convince me that it was spam or some kind of bad joke. She assured me that she didn't know who had written that to her, and indeed, she hadn't answered it. I desperately wanted to believe her. Although the evidence of her infidelity was evident, my love for Anna was a chain that kept me trapped in a relationship that was slowly falling apart. The struggle between what I knew and what I wanted created a constant tension within me, and reality mixed with denial in a whirlpool that seemed to have no end. My mornings and breakfast alone began with the same question in mind. Where had Anna been last night? Her response when I got it was usually vague and evasive. She said she had work meetings or impromptu dinners with friends who needed her support. But the lack of details and her nervous demeanor were telling. So like a detective, I've begun my search for answers. The first step was to find out what she was hiding on her phone. It wasn't easy, as she almost never left it unattended, and on the few opportunities I had, I scanned it for suspicious messages or calls. But she was clever, erasing any compromising traces and keeping her main apps locked with a password. So I started following their social media closely. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. No platform was safe from my scrutiny. Anna used to be very active, sharing photos, stories, and details of her life. However, I noticed that she had started to be more cautious. Her photos were more ambiguous, and her interactions had become more private. Mysterious comments or likes began to appear on her posts, which increased my suspicions. My heart was pounding, but I knew I needed more than a like on a photo to confront an argument like that with my wife. One afternoon, after another day full of doubts and suspicions, I decided to seek support from someone I could trust. My sister-in-law, Marta, my brother's wife. I had always had a close relationship with her, and I knew I could count on her advice if difficult times. So after taking a deep breath, I decided to call her and ask her to meet me. We met in a cozy little cafe that we used to go to on occasions. Marta immediately noticed the concern on my face and asked me what was happening. I was hesitant at first, but finally decided to open up and tell her everything. "Marta, I need to talk to you about something that is destroying me inside," I said with a broken voice. She looked at me worriedly and shakily and encouraged me to continue. I explained in detail everything that was happening in my marriage to Anna, from the signs of her infidelity to my failed attempts to get answers. Marta listened attentively, nodding silently as she spoke. When I finished telling my story, she took my hand understandingly. "John, I'm so sorry you're going through this. It must be incredibly difficult," she said empathetically. I nodded sadly. "It is, Marta. I'm caught between what I know and what I want to believe. I don't want to lose Anna, but I also can't ignore all the evidence I find every day." Marta sighed and looked deeply into my eyes. She told me that trust was essential in a marriage. But what could I do? Rather, what should I do? I grabbed a tissue to wipe away all the tears that were on my face. My sister-in-law pondered for a moment and then spoke calmly. She told me that communication was key in any relationship. She encouraged me to tell her how I felt and to listen to her response. Because sometimes things weren't what they seemed. I looked at her, grateful for her advice. "You're right, communication is key. But what do I do if she keeps denying everything?" Marta smiled at me and assured me that everything would be fine. She was sure that my wife would not be unfaithful to me. The truth is that her words calmed me a lot, because in addition to having a very good relationship with me, she also knew Anna well. Although it had been several months since the four of us had been together with my brother, she could give me advice and better understand what was going on in my wife's head, after all. She was also a woman, and there was a special connection between them, which was sometimes incomprehensible among men. I appreciated the support and trust that Marta gave me. I felt a little relief thinking that maybe my paranoia was exaggerating things. I decided to follow her advice and try to talk openly and honestly with my wife. After our conversation, I felt stronger and determined to deal with the situation in an adult way. The next few days were difficult as I waited for an opportunity to have that crucial conversation with her. Suspicions were still running through my head, but I tried to stay calm and not jump to conclusions. My goal was to solve our problems, not accuse without solid evidence. Finally, one afternoon, while Anna and I were sharing dinner at home, I found the right moment to broach the topic. I took a deep breath and told her that we had to talk, that I had noticed that things were a little complicated lately, and I couldn't continue with so many doubts. She looked at me with surprise, as if she wasn't expecting that conversation. I explained to her how distant I had felt from her in recent months, and how suspicions of infidelity had begun to affect our relationship. I asked her to be honest with me and share her feelings. She seemed uncomfortable, but finally started talking and assured me that there was no extramarital affair. I decided to trust her sincerity. I accepted that, as Marta had suggested, perhaps things weren't what they seemed. Over the next few weeks, Anna and I worked on rebuilding our relationship. We openly communicated our needs and concerns and began spending more time together. It seemed that things were gradually improving, and my hope that we could overcome this crisis grew day by day. However, one night, as I was leaving the house in search of some fresh air to clean my head, something happened that changed everything again. While walking through a vacant lot near our neighborhood, I saw a car parked in a secluded corner. As I approached it, I recognized Marta's car, my sister-in-law. Intrigued, I slowly approached the vehicle, thinking there might have been some problem. It was a strange place and time to be there, so I didn't hesitate to check out how she was. But what I saw through the car window left me completely stunned and frozen to the spot. Inside the car, I saw Anna and Marta both naked. They were in an intimate and compromising situation that I could not believe. My heart sunk and a wave of emotions washed over me. I was paralyzed, unable to process what I was seeing. Those furtive glances, that intensity with which they touched each other, their bodies, naked and intertwined inside the car, gave off a burning desire that was palpable even from outside. They embraced each other with unbridled passion, their hands eagerly covering every inch of the other's skin. Sighs escaped their lips as they gave themselves over completely to the lust of the moment. Tears filled my eyes as I watched the scene, feeling doubly betrayed and hurt. First for my wife, but also for my sister-in-law, who had deceived me in that hypocritical way with that advice, trying to guide my attention elsewhere. After all, on that afternoon of confessions in the cafe, I had been telling her my worries and looking into the eyes of my wife's lover. She had laughed in my face. I couldn't understand how they could have come to this. My mind was blank and I didn't know what to do. My hands shook as I watched the betrayal unfold before my eyes. My mind was filled with the whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sadness, confusion. I didn't know how to react, but fury began to grow inside me like a ravenous flame. I walked away from the car in a state of shock, trying to process what I had just witnessed. The images of Anna and Marta remained etched in my mind, torturing me mercilessly. When I returned home, the tension in the air was palpable. Anna must have noticed something was wrong, but I didn't mention anything she had seen. Instead, I chose to wait and plan my revenge calmly. The betrayal was so deep that I felt I couldn't sit idly by. I needed to make them pay for their deception. I'd realized that justice wouldn't be enough. I wanted to see them suffer as much as I was. I began to devise an elaborate plan to make them pay for their actions, one that would plunge them into terror and despair. The next night, I followed my wife in the car to a jazz bar in the center of the city. She was dressed in a sensual outfit, very different from her usual style. I saw how she met Marta in the entrance, exchanging smiles and looking full of desire. How naive I felt. If I had seen that image 1,000 times before, it would never have crossed my mind that they had a secret relationship. I got out of the car and, dressed in a raincoat and a hat, I decided to follow them into the bar. I didn't know what I was going to do when I saw them, but my body pushed me to confirm that my eyes hadn't deceived me that night. The inside of the bar was quite dark, but it wasn't difficult for me to find them. My heart pounded in my chest as I blended into the crowd, trying to blend in. The soft music and lights created a very romantic atmosphere. I sat in the corner, watching their every move. Then I reached into my pocket and noticed I had a knife. I didn't even remember when I had left it there. My mind was filled with a mixture of terror and anguish. How had our relationship gotten to that point? When I saw them putting on their coats to go out, I got ready to do it too. I followed them to their car and surprised them. I tied them violently with a sadistic smile on my face. I revealed to them all the evidence I had accumulated and promised them that they would suffer the same pain and humiliation that I had experienced. I took them home, and in the basement for days I subjected them to unimaginable physical and psychological torture. Their pleas and screams echoed between the four walls, but I was blinded by hatred and the thirst for revenge. The horror they experienced at my hands became an endless nightmare. I started by cutting my sister-in-law's hair. I shaved it to zero, leaving her bald. Then I continued with my wife. I looked at them with tears and asked them if they were still attracted to each other. But it was not enough for me. I continued cutting off one ear so that they could no longer hear themselves, then several fingers, so that their dirty and treacherous hands could no longer be felt. I was ready to continue with the eyes, to take away the sight that had allowed them to meet and seduce each other. But I collapsed. Despite all that, the satisfaction I expected to feel never came. Instead, I found myself mired in an abyss of guilt and despair. What I had done hadn't brought me the peace I sought, but had worsened my own inner darkness. My hands were stained with blood. I didn't recognize myself. Finally, unable to bear the agony any longer, I decided to free them both. I would set them free, but their lives would be marked by the trauma I had inflicted on them. I knew they could never be the same again, just like me. I should have resolved it differently, told her things clearly, and let her go with another woman if that made her happy. My obsession with revenge had turned me into a monster, and now I was faced with the consequences of my actions. Trembling, the two cried and hacked each other with their bloody, fingerless hands, running their palms over each other's cheeks and telling each other that everything would be okay. I sat there, staring at them while they helped cover the bleeding that was getting bigger and bigger. When they were about to walk out of the door, Anna turned to look at me one last time, with hatred in her eyes, and I had to do it. I was selfish, yes. I couldn't stand the idea of the two of them rebuilding a happy life together, loving each other, while I rotted behind bars. Was I going to turn myself into the police? Yes, but at the last moment, I decided to grab a pen and paper and tell you this story and ask you, what would you have done? I grabbed my wife's corpse, caressed her head, so soft and hairless for the last time. She was still as beautiful as the day I met her. And hugging her, I shot my temple, ending my torment. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!